The large screen went dark as the last equation faded away. John Carter stood alone on the stage, his heart beating fast as silence filled the grand hall of the Galactic Sciences Summit. Then, as he expected, the laughter began. It started with a few snickers from the Zarkanian delegation, their blue-skinned faces twisted in amusement. Soon, the entire hall joined in. Hundreds of alien scientists from across the galaxy laughed at his theory of quantum dimensional bridges. Vathor, the famous Zarkanian scientist, stood up from his front-row seat. His long, silvery robes sparkled under the bright lights as he pointed one of his 4 arms at John. "This is what happens when we let primitive species join our scientific community," he said, his translator making his words clear to everyone. "Humans cannot even travel beyond their own star system, yet they think they can teach us about quantum mechanics." John gripped the edges of the podium. His knuckles turned white, but he kept his face calm. 6 years of research, 6 years of careful calculations and experiments, all dismissed in seconds. From the middle of the hall, a human woman stood up. Linda Morrison wore her usual plain black suit, her brown hair tied back in a simple ponytail. "The math is solid," she said firmly, "if you'd actually look at the calculations instead of laughing." "We have looked at the calculations," Vathor cut her off. "They are the work of children playing with numbers they don't understand. The very idea that spatial mechanics could work this way goes against everything we know." "Everything you know?" John spoke up, finding his voice again. "But what if everything you know is based on wrong assumptions?" This brought another wave of laughter. Several alien scientists got up and left the hall, their various appendages gesturing in what John had learned were signs of dismissal across different species. Later, in their small lab back on Earth, John stared at the complex machinery they had built. It wasn't pretty. Most of it was cobbled together from spare parts and whatever equipment they could afford. Linda worked at her computer, running another simulation. "They're wrong," she said without looking up. "We'll prove it." John walked over to their main testing chamber. It was a simple metal cube, 3 meters on each side, with dozens of sensors attached to it. Inside, their latest prototype hummed softly. 6 years, Linda. 6 years, and all we've got to show for it is a room full of aliens laughing at us. "That's 6 years of progress," Linda replied. She finally looked up from her screen. "Remember what it was like when we started, when we couldn't even get the quantum field to stabilize for more than a microsecond. Now we can hold it for almost 3 seconds." John smiled despite himself. Linda had been there from the beginning, back when everyone on Earth had laughed at them too. She'd stuck with him through failed experiments, rejected grant applications, and countless setbacks. The prototype made a strange noise, drawing their attention. John walked closer to check the readings. The quantum field was fluctuating in an unusual pattern. "Linda," he called out, "come look at this." She joined him by the testing chamber. The readings were unlike anything they'd seen before. The quantum field wasn't just stable, it was growing stronger. "Run a full diagnostic," John said, his excitement building. "This might be." A loud alarm cut him off. Red lights started flashing throughout the lab. On Linda's computer screen, an urgent message blinked. "Priority ALERT from Earth Defense Command." They had no way of knowing it then, but this was the moment everything would change. The moment when humanity's struggle for respect in the galaxy would take an unexpected turn. The aliens had laughed at John's theories about quantum mechanics and spatial manipulation. Soon, they wouldn't be laughing anymore. The message on the screen was clear: unknown objects approaching the solar system at impossible speeds. But John and Linda barely noticed it now. They were too focused on the readings from their quantum field experiment. "This can't be right," Linda said, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "The field strength is 10 times higher than anything we've achieved before, and it's still growing." John checked another monitor. "The energy signature is different too. Look at these patterns." He pointed to a series of waves on the screen. "It's like the field is resonating with something. A soft blue glow began to emanate from their test chamber. It pulsed in rhythm with the quantum field fluctuations, casting strange shadows around the lab. Neither of them had seen anything like it before. Running full spectrum analysis, Linda announced. She paused, staring at the results. John, these readings, they matched the theoretical predictions from your paper, the one they laughed at. Before John could respond, their lab door burst open. A woman in a military uniform rushed in, followed by 2 armed guards. Her name tag read Captain Rogers. "Dr. Carter, Dr. Morrison," she said, slightly out of breath. "You need to come with us right now. Earth Defense Command needs your expertise." Linda gestured at their experiment. "We can't leave now. We're in the middle of a breakthrough." "That's exactly why we're here," Captain Rogers replied. She pulled up a holographic display from her wrist device. "These are readings from our deep space sensors. Whatever's coming toward Earth is bending space in ways we've never seen before. Ways that look very similar to your theoretical models. Dr. Carter." John looked back at their test chamber, then at the captain's hologram. The wave patterns were nearly identical. "That's impossible," he whispered. "Sir, nothing about this situation is normal," Captain Rogers said. "We've lost contact with 3 outer colony outposts in the last hour. The Galactic Council is in chaos, and now we're detecting quantum signatures that match your supposedly impossible theories." A deep rumble shook the building. The blue glow from their test chamber intensified, and new patterns appeared in the quantum field readings. "The field is responding to something," Linda said, her voice tense. "It's like there's another source out there, something much more powerful than our equipment." Captain Rogers' communicator beeped. Her face went pale as she listened to the message. "We need to move now," she said. "They're calling them the Void Harbingers, ancient beings from somewhere else. They're using quantum-based weapons that ignore our strongest shields." John looked at Linda, then at their experimental data. "The field variations, the energy signatures. We didn't create this quantum effect. We just accidentally tapped into it. And that might be exactly what Earth needs right now," Linda added, already starting to download their data. They quickly packed their essential equipment. As they followed Captain Rogers out of the lab, John couldn't help but think about the irony. The aliens had mocked his theories about quantum spatial manipulation, calling them primitive and impossible. Now those same theories might be humanity's only hope of understanding what they were up against. The ground shook again, harder this time. Somewhere in the distance, sirens began to wail. Earth's first line of defense against the Void Harbingers would be the very principles of quantum mechanics that the galactic community had dismissed as human foolishness. Ambassador Amanda Peters stood before the Galactic Council, trying to keep her voice steady. The massive chamber, usually filled with the quiet murmur of hundreds of species discussing policy, was now in complete chaos. "The Void Harbingers are not just a human problem," she said into the universal translator. "They will come for everyone. We need to work together." The Zarkanian representative waved all 4 arms in dismissal. "Humans see threats everywhere because they understand so little. These disturbances are likely just natural space phenomena that your primitive sensors misinterpret." On the massive screens behind Amanda, live feeds showed the destruction of Earth's outer colonies. Strange, dark ships moved through space, their surfaces seeming to bend light around them. Wherever they passed, reality itself appeared to twist and tear. "Does this look like a natural phenomenon to you?" Amanda asked, pointing to the footage. 3 colonies are already gone, millions dead, and our sensors show them heading toward other systems too. In the back of the chamber, John and Linda worked frantically at a portable quantum scanner they had brought. Linda looked up from her readings, her face grim. "Ambassador," she called out, "they're using the same quantum field signatures we detected in our lab, but the power levels are off the charts." A tall, insectoid alien stepped forward. "The humans speak truth," it clicked through its translator. "Our own deep space arrays detect major spatial distortions approaching the Nexus worlds." This caused a new wave of panic in the chamber. The Nexus worlds were the heart of galactic civilization. If they were threatened, no one was safe. John walked to the center of the chamber, holding up his datapad. We've been studying these quantum effects. They don't just bend space, they tear holes in it. The Void Harbingers aren't traveling through normal space. They're creating shortcuts through reality itself. And why should we trust human science? Vathor asked from his seat. Your understanding of quantum mechanics is primitive at best. Linda joined John, projecting their lab data onto the main screens. Because we accidentally discovered how to detect and interact with these fields. The same principles you laughed at. They're the key to understanding how the Void Harbingers move and fight. The chamber grew quiet as the aliens studied the data. Even Vathor leaned forward, his expression changing from dismissal to concern. A deep, resonating alarm suddenly filled the chamber. The main screen switched to new sensor readings. More Void Harbinger ships had appeared, this time near the Zarkanian home system. They're not just attacking Earth, Amanda said firmly. They're attacking everyone. And right now, humanity has the only working research into the quantum principles they're using. The council leaders huddled together, their various forms of communication creating a strange mixture of sounds. Finally, the council leader, a being of pure energy contained in a crystal matrix, floated forward. The council acknowledges the human warning, it said, its words translated into all languages simultaneously. We request immediate sharing of all quantum research data. John stepped forward again. We'll share everything we know. But we need resources, labs, and scientists from every species. What we learned by accident needs to be turned into a defense. Fast. The council leader's crystal form pulsed with light. Granted. The human scientists will lead a joint research team. It turned to Vathor. Your academy will provide full support. Vathor stood, his pride visibly struggling with necessity. The Zarkanian Academy accepts this arrangement. As the council mobilized for war, Amanda looked at John and Linda. They had finally gotten the aliens' attention. Now they just had to hope it wasn't too late. Admiral Peter Walsh watched the battle screens from the bridge of the Earth defense ship Valiant. Red dots representing Void Harbinger vessels appeared at the edge of Saturn's orbit. He had positioned Earth's remaining fleet to make their stand here, far enough from Earth to give them room to maneuver. All ships report ready, sir, his second-in-command said. But our weapons might be useless against their quantum shields. Walsh nodded grimly. Then we'll try something they won't expect. Battle Formation Delta. Prepare the mining charges. The fleet moved into position, spreading out in a wide arc. The Void Harbinger ships approached slowly, their dark forms distorting the space around them like heat waves over hot pavement. Back on Earth, John and Linda worked with a mixed team of human and alien scientists. Their lab, once small and underfunded, now filled an entire floor of the Planetary Defense Center. Vathor himself stood nearby, watching their progress. The quantum field variations are getting stronger, Linda said, studying the readings. They're about to attack. John adjusted their sensors. At least now we can track them properly. Admiral Walsh's fleet won't be fighting blind. In space, the battle began. The Void Harbinger ships fired strange, twisting beams of energy that seemed to bend around normal shields. But Walsh was ready. Deploy the charges, he ordered. Hundreds of mining explosives, normally used to break up asteroids, floated toward the enemy ships. The Void Harbingers ignored them, their weapons focusing on the Earth fleet instead. Now, Walsh commanded. The charges detonated. They didn't damage the enemy ships, but the explosions filled space with debris and dust. The Void Harbinger's energy weapons hit this cloud of particles, creating unexpected reactions. Their quantum weapons are interacting with the debris field. Linda reported from Earth, watching the sensor data. It's disrupting their firing patterns. Walsh pressed the advantage. All ships, conventional weapons, target their drive sections. Earth's fleet opened fire, Regular missiles and energy weapons slipped through gaps in the Void Harbinger's quantum defenses, created by the interference from the debris field. 2 enemy ships exploded in strange, reality-bending bursts. Vathor stepped closer to the sensor displays. Impossible. Your primitive weapons shouldn't be able to harm them at all. Sometimes the simple solution works best, John replied, not taking his eyes off the data. Their quantum technology is advanced, but they didn't expect basic physics to be used against them. The battle continued. Earth's fleet took heavy losses, but they held their ground. For every human ship destroyed, they managed to take down a Void Harbinger vessel. The enemy, clearly not used to such resistance, began to pull back. They're retreating, Walsh announced to his fleet, but they'll be back, and next time they'll be ready for our tricks. In the lab, John turned to Linda and Vathor. We've bought some time. Now we need to turn our quantum field research into a real defense system. Vathor's expression had changed completely from his usual arrogance. Perhaps we have been too quick to dismiss human methods. Your species finds ways to fight that we would never consider. Linda smiled slightly. That's because everyone kept telling us what was impossible. We had to learn to try everything, even the simple solutions. As the fleet regrouped and repair crews got to work, Walsh sent a message to Earth Defense Command. First battle won. Humanity had proven they could fight back. Now they just needed to find a way to win the war. Michelle Reeves stood in the Earth Defense Command Center, surrounded by screens showing the planet's new quantum shield network. After weeks of non-stop work, John and Linda's breakthrough was finally ready for full deployment. All shield generators are in position, a technician reported. Power levels are stable. Michelle nodded, then turned to John and Linda. Are you sure this will work? We're betting everything on your theory. It worked in all our tests, Linda said, checking the final calculations on her tablet. The quantum field doesn't just block their weapons. It redirects the energy through dimensional rifts. John pointed to a diagram showing the shield's operation. Their own attacks will create the rifts that send the energy back to them. The more power they use, the stronger the backblast. Vathor, who had become a permanent fixture in their lab, stepped forward. The mathematics are sound, though I still can't believe the solution was hidden in that paper we mocked months ago. The room fell quiet as new alerts flashed across the screens. The Void Harbingers had returned, their fleet 3 times larger than before. This time, they headed straight for Earth. They're not bothering with the outer defenses, Michelle said. This is an all-out attack on the homeworld. Admiral Walsh's voice came through the command channel. Fleet in defensive positions, but we won't be able to use the debris field trick again. They've adapted their weapons. Hold position, Admiral, Michelle ordered. Let them come to us this time. The enemy fleet approached Earth's orbit, their weapons charged, creating visible distortions in space around their ships. Everyone in the command center held their breath. Shield network activated, Linda announced. She looked at John, ready to see if they still think human science is primitive. The Void Harbingers opened fire. Massive beams of quantum energy struck Earth's atmosphere and vanished. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, behind the enemy fleet, space itself seemed to tear open. The redirected energy burst out of the rifts, hitting the Void Harbinger ships from behind. It's working, John shouted, watching the sensor readings. The shields are creating perfect dimensional inversions. 3 enemy ships exploded as their own weapons turned against them. The others tried to adjust, firing at different frequencies and power levels. But each attack only made the quantum shield stronger, creating more rifts and more devastating counterattacks. Vathor's eyes widened as he studied the data. The shield is learning, adapting to each attack pattern. This goes beyond anything in our scientific understanding. That's because you always assumed there were limits, Linda explained, making real-time adjustments to the shield network. We questioned everything, even basic principles you took for granted. The Void Harbinger fleet began to retreat, but the damage was done. Nearly half their ships had been destroyed by their own weapons. The others showed signs of severe damage from the quantum backblast. Michelle turned to her communications officer. "Send word to all our allies. The quantum shield works. Earth is protected." "Not just Earth," John added. "We can adapt this technology to protect any planet. The Void Harbingers just learned that humanity isn't as primitive as they thought." The Thor placed one of his hands on John's shoulder. "No, Dr. Carter. Today they learned that humanity's greatest strength is its ability to prove everyone wrong, including us." As celebration broke out in the command center, Linda was already working on improvements to the shield design. The war wasn't over, but for the first time, the galaxy had hope, and it came from the species they had all underestimated. The Zarkanian Science Academy's main hall looked very different now. Where once there had been laughter at human theories, now there was eager attention as John and Linda taught alien scientists how to build quantum shields. "The key is to stop thinking of space as fixed," Linda explained to the crowded room. "It's more like a fabric that can be folded and redirected." Representatives from 12 different species took notes. Even the crystal beings from the Andromeda Galaxy had sent their best scientists to learn. Vothor stood beside John, helping to translate complex concepts for species whose minds work differently from humans. "Another Void Harbinger fleet has been detected near the Nexus worlds," and Abe announced, entering the hall. But instead of panic, the news was met with calm determination. "The quantum shield network there is ready," John said, checking his datapad. "Thanks to everyone working together, we've managed to protect 32 star systems in just 2 weeks." Outside the academy, ships from across the galaxy arrived hourly, bringing more scientists and engineers eager to learn from Earth. The same humans who had been mocked as primitive now led the greatest scientific collaboration in known space. Linda worked with a group of younger aliens, showing them how to calibrate the quantum field generators. "Remember, don't be afraid to try new approaches. Half our breakthroughs came from testing ideas that seemed impossible." Like this morning's discovery, Vothor added, his voice carrying a new respect. "Who would have thought that playing human music near the quantum fields would create harmonic resonances that strengthen the shields?" In orbit above the Zarkanian homeworld, Admiral Walsh coordinated with alien fleets. The combined forces had adopted Earth's practical battle tactics, learning to use simple solutions alongside advanced technology. When the Void Harbingers attacked now, they faced united resistance from dozens of species. Another attack repelled. Walsh reported through the command channel. "The quantum shields held perfectly. No casualties on our side." Back in the academy, John watched the latest sensor data with satisfaction. The Void Harbingers' attacks grew weaker each time, their seemingly unstoppable weapons now turned against them by human innovation. "We've received requests from 50 more worlds," Linda said, joining him at the display. "They all want to join the defense network." A young Zarkanian scientist approached them nervously. "Dr. Carter, Dr. Morrison, we've been studying your original papers, the ones about quantum spatial manipulation. We think there might be even more applications we never considered." John smiled. "That's the spirit. Question everything, test every idea. That's the human way." Vothor gathered everyone's attention. "Today marks a milestone. The Galactic Council has officially recognized Earth's Science Academy as the new center for quantum research. All species will send their brightest minds here to learn." The hall erupted in applause, a strange mix of sounds as each species expressed approval in their own way. Linda looked around at the gathered aliens, remembering how different things had been just months ago. "From outcasts to teachers," she said quietly to John. "Quite a change." "The change was always possible," John replied. "We just had to show them that progress comes from challenging old beliefs, not defending them." As the day ended, news arrived of more Void Harbinger retreats. The species that had once threatened the galaxy now faced a unified front of worlds protected by human science. The universe had learned an important lesson. Never underestimate humanity's ability to overcome challenges, no matter how impossible they might seem. 1 year after the first Void Harbinger attack, the Galactic Council chamber looked very different. Earth's flag now hung in the center, alongside the oldest spacefaring races. Ambassador Amanda Peters sat at the high table, no longer fighting for attention but leading the discussion. The last Void Harbinger ship was detected 3 months ago, she reported to the assembled representatives. Our combined fleets drove them back to whatever dimension they came from. The council leader's crystal form glowed with approval. And the quantum shield network now protects over 500 worlds. Earth has changed the very nature of galactic defense. In the science section of the chamber, John and Linda presented their latest findings. The quantum fields had opened up new possibilities that even they hadn't imagined at first. We found ways to use the dimensional rifts for more than defense, Linda explained. The same principles that turned back the Void Harbingers can revolutionize space travel, energy production, and communication. John activated a hologram showing the new quantum transportation network. Distance becomes meaningless when you understand how to fold space properly. The galaxy has become a much smaller place. Vathor, now the head of the Interspecies Scientific Coalition, stood proudly beside his human colleagues. A year ago, we thought humans were primitive because they questioned our established theories. Now we understand that this was their greatest strength. The coalition headquarters had been built on Earth, a sprawling complex where scientists from every known species worked together. The old barriers of pride and prejudice had fallen, replaced by a shared enthusiasm for discovery. Admiral Walsh, speaking from his new position as Fleet Commander of the Combined Defense Forces, appeared on the main screen. The quantum shield technology has been fully integrated into all Allied ships. But more importantly, we've learned to combine each species' unique approaches to problem solving. Michelle Reeves, who now directed Earth's Global Defense Network, shared the latest statistics. Our predictive models show no significant threats to galactic peace for the foreseeable future. The Void Harbingers taught us that we're stronger together than apart. In the chamber's public gallery, a group of young aliens from various species watched with excitement. They were the first class of the new Galactic Science Academy, where human creativity and determination were now considered essential subjects. The galaxy faces an unprecedented era of peace and progress, Amanda continued. But we must remember the lesson that brought us here. No species has a monopoly on truth or wisdom. We advance fastest when we listen to new ideas, even if they challenge everything we think we know. The council leader floated forward. Let the record show that humanity has earned its place as a senior member of the Galactic Council. Their unique perspective has proven invaluable to all. John looked at Linda, both of them remembering that day in this same chamber when their ideas had been laughed at. Now those same ideas had saved civilization and united the galaxy. What's next? Linda asked quietly. John smiled. We keep questioning, keep exploring. There's still so much we don't know. Vathor overheard them. And now the whole galaxy is ready to ask those questions with you. We've learned that the most powerful force in the universe isn't technology or weapons. It's the willingness to try what others say is impossible, Amanda finished for him. As the council session ended, the assembled species stood in respect, not just for humanity's achievements, but for the new way of thinking they had brought to the stars. The species that had once been dismissed as primitive had shown that true advancement comes not from knowing all the answers, but from never stopping asking questions.